What's up and welcome to my guitar channel. I own a Kemper and barely use it. Whilst it's my best and most versatile piece of equipment, it is the only tool that I've got that I actively avoid using. This is essentially a bitch session, so please cheer me up with a like and subscription. Number 1, the load time. Down here is a video of the Kemper starting up, and I've got a timer next to it just so you can see exactly how long it takes. For my purposes, I want convenience. I pick up the guitar, I don't want any limitations after that fact to stop me playing. Yes, every single thing has initial load times, including my own warming up, but I get less frustrated with every other bit of equipment than I do with the Kemper because the Kemper always seems to be at that point where I want to play. I want the immediacy to start right now. With music, the only limitation I want is myself. And yes, it's obvious, I'm full of limitations, but at least when I identify a limitation of my own, I can now start to work to make it not a limitation. If I'm limited by the gear that I've got, then I've got a problem. However, if that's something like a broken string or a guitar cable that only works when it's on that perfect angle, I just replace it because it's so much better. I don't have to think about it. The process is already done and I don't have to think about it for another few months. Whereas the Kemper, every single time I turn it on, I have to wait for it to be ready so that I can do what I need to do. To me, that puts a limit on my creativity, and that's a huge problem. As we can see, there's about 1 minute and 10 seconds of startup time. I know I can use that time to warm up or do whatever, but usually what happens is I've already warmed up, or I've got an idea, or there's something that I want to figure out or learn or whatever that I want. Okay, plug in, play, let's go. I don't want to have to plug in, turn it on, wait for it, and then go, because then you lose the immediacy of the moment, and to me that's really important. I should just be able to go, okay, bam, 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 done, let's roll. More often than not, I am waiting for the Kemper to be ready for me, rather than the other way around. Points 2, 3, and 4 about the user interface. Every single one of these items I find myself either battling with or ignoring altogether. Point number 2 is you press a button once to turn it off, you hold it for adjustment. This one drives me nuts because it's very easy to have a patch where you've got a wah, an overdrive, a fuzz, a pre-EQ, the amp, a EQ on the amp, a cab, and a reverb and a delay and maybe a phaser or something like that. And often, it's not the perfect sound that you're looking for. So you want to get in there and start figuring out how to dial in more gain or something like that. You press the amp button to change the settings and straight away your amp's turned off. So the example that I've got in the video below is me attempting to change cab. Now I have already written this script, I already knew what the Kemper was going to do, and this was me genuinely trying to do it, 1, to demonstrate the process, but 2, making mistakes every single point along the way. So you see that I'm pressing the button to try and turn it on and off, and each time I press it, I'm sitting there confused as to why I've got the result that I've got. I then press and hold it, and then I dial, as you can see in the video, to choose my selected amp, but where did my old amp go? What if I want to compare this one and the next one? It's really not that easy to do, and it's really frustrating. It just seems like the counterintuitive approach to me. In my opinion, it'd be much better to have one press brings up the settings, a double press bypasses it, and maybe a hold for changing what the actual type of effect that is. And a lot of this problem is mitigated by having someone who knows what they're doing with the Kemper, doing it for you while you keep playing so you can make sure you're getting the right tone. Most of us don't have that luxury. Number 3, navigation. Holy crap, this is bad. If you want to go from a 5150 to a VH4, then you have to manually scroll through the hundreds of amps that you've got in your Kemper like this. And this is assuming that you've got your profiles named correctly. There's no way, or at least no way that I'm aware of, to organize your Kemper profiles into an easier thing unless you manually replace the first letter of your favorite cabs, your favorite amps, your favorite whatevers with A or something to put it right at the top of the list so you're picking from a finite amount. This to me seems counterintuitive. You should be able to put a folder of your favorite high gain amps and your favorite clean amps and your favorite crunch amps and your favorite cabs and your favorite pedals and whatever, so that you can very easily navigate to a setup that you know is probably going to sound good. Number 4 is the naming system. The only way to name stuff in this is to scroll through it PS1 style. This is horrific and it needs to be changed. You can't even do it in Rig Manager, or at least I couldn't figure that out. And on that note, number 5 is Rig Manager itself. Rig Manager is horrible. They've just updated and made it 10 times better than what it was, but it's still crap. It's a very old styled interface that is not user friendly. It looks crappy. To change the reverbs, delays, stomp boxes, anything like that, it's a really clunky process, and I'm sure it's because of legal reasons, but they're not allowed to say that they've got an MXR phaser. It's just a phaser, and you have to dial the settings in with that. That's fine, but different wahs and different delays and all these different pedals are there because they're unique. It just makes it harder for someone who doesn't know what they're doing to sit there and go, okay, I've got a phaser. I'm after this particular tone. This phaser that's in the Kemper doesn't work, and I don't know what I need to get the tone that I want. It just, once again, it just makes things that bit harder for the people who don't know what they're doing. So, for example, if I wanted a Strymon timeline or an eventide time factor, I don't have those options. I've just got the legacy delay and all the different options within that. If you don't know what a free slap might be, then you've just got to go through these literally hundreds of options of different types of delays and hope that you're getting the right one. The good thing about having all these hundreds of options is you're probably going to find something that's useful. The bad thing is you don't know. If you're only familiar with one type of delay, you cannot get that. You cannot play around with that idea within the program. The most annoying thing that I find about Rig Manager, and this is my number 6, is you can't hot swap the cabs or the amplifiers in Rig Manager. You're stuck with this one. So I've got this patch here. Whatever this amp is, I don't even know. I think it's, I guess it's a purple driftwood from the GGD library. But I can't just say, oh, what happens if I have this exact setup, but with a 5150 or with a Mesa or with a something else. I can't do that on here. When I use the Kemper's faceplate, it's the twist of a dial and I go through all the different options, no worries. Same with the cabs, twisting a dial and I'm scrolling through hundreds of different cabs. I literally can't change it unless I do it on the Kemper unit itself. Now, to me, that makes no sense because the Rig Manager should be something that has full functionality of the Kemper, except it's on a computer interface. So inherently it's going to be easier because it's not limited by the physical nature of a hardware unit. And yet, it is more limited. Now, yet another feature that I find annoying about the Kemper and Rig Manager, this one's kind of a bit of both, is that every change that you make on the Kemper faceplate is saved, and every change that you make in Rig Manager is not saved unless you save it. To me, this is annoying. If you're running through your computer and you want your own cab sims on your computer because you can have control of the options there, you need to turn it off. You do that on the faceplate. The next time that you take your Kemper somewhere else, the cab's already going to be off, and there's not much you can do to change about that other than remembering to change it. And this is a likely situation because people use their Kempers. They take the Kemper and plug it straight into front of house. Now, if you've heard what a guitar amp sounds like without a cab, it's an absolutely horrific sound. You don't want that sound to be the thing that comes out when you start performing live. Yes, it's such a simple thing, but it's like it should be a simple setting in both Rig Manager and on the Kemper itself. At the end of every session, do you want to save your settings? Number 8 is endless options. A big drawback of something like this is it is so easy to jump online and download hundreds of Kemper packs of very varying quality, and then you've got a Kemper loaded with stuff that you don't necessarily know how to use. That was the idea that I rolled into. I'm like, if I've got hundreds of options, then there's going to be plenty in there for every situation that I ever face. But immediately I had the burden of choice. I couldn't tell the difference between what sounded good and what sounded great and what sounded average. It was just, does this kind of sound like metal? Yes or no. And then I move on to the next one. What I would actually highly recommend you do is if you get a Kemper or if you've got a Kemper and you're downloading the free packs, screw the free packs off completely. Maybe there's some good sounds in there, but you're better off going to something like STL Tones or Get Good Drums and getting a pack that you know you're going to be able to use. Something with amps that the guitarists you like use, done by someone who's reputable. In my opinion, it's much better to have 3 brilliant amps that you can play with and tweak and make your own and that are versatile inherently than it is to have 50 average amps. This is for multiple reasons. If you're after something specific later on, you can go and get that pack of Rivera or whatever other amp that you're really hyper after. But if you know that you've got some really good sounds to get you going, then you're able to play more deeply with those sounds and learn about that one particular amp head and learn how you can use it in different situations and what it works with and what it doesn't work with. When you've got 50 amps, it's just, oh, I use only that one because I know that it works in most situations. It's a totally different approach, and I think one is far more efficient and far better in all ways. And the most amazing thing about that is when you outgrow those few that you've got that you know are good quality, you've got a really good quality reference. Any new one that comes along that you plug in and you see what it sounds like, you can go, okay, I can see why that would be useful, or that was a crap capture. I'm deleting that straight away and never thinking about it again. Number 9, this one is a bit of a personal gripe. I bought my Kemper secondhand. It is not the powered unit. But if you look at the image that I had earlier, this is how we've had to set it up because it makes the most sense. and to me it's a pain in the ass. This unit is sold as the ultimate studio and performance tool, yet the basic model which I own lacks a power amp. I know that there is a model that comes with a power amp, but I'm not going to sell the model that I've got just because I've got one that's slightly more convenient. And I'm also not going to pay 300 euros more for the same thing that's slightly more convenient. It just doesn't make any sense for me to do. Look at this image that we've got. This is the setup that we've made so that we can use it at home, in the studio, or for any live purpose. Me and my brother had to do some very sketchy metal work with an old computer case to get these brackets in so that we could mount the Kemper and not have it bouncing around the case. Since we've put it in once, we've never removed it. I like that the Kemper is a lunchbox size, but the lunchbox doesn't make any sense unless it's got a power head. Because if you think about it, if it's designed as a studio tool, then something as a rack unit. Every studio has rack units. So it makes sense. It's very easy to slot a rack unit in when you've already got places for rack units. If you've got rack units in a place and you need something that's lunchbox size that's not the same size as a head, it doesn't really fit anywhere. You've got to find its own special place for the Kemper. Once again, that's another penis in the anus. It's really, really annoying that that's what happens. And finally, because I'm getting really petty, it's ugly. Whoever designed this should be shot. There are so many things about this that actually really frustrate me, and it just seems like it is made to be difficult. It's so easy on a regular amp where you just plug it in and you go, okay, I need more highs. You turn up the highs, you get more highs. You deal with the cab that you've got, blah, 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 blah. With this, there is just so many choices, and the choices are kind of so hard to navigate between. You think about it, if you've got one cab that you think is really good and another cab that you think is really good and you want to compare to see which one might be better, but one's name starts with A and the other's name starts with S, you can't get that immediate comparison of click here, what does that sound like? Click here, what does that sound like? You've got to scroll through and see the two different settings together. It's just frustrating. So there's 10 reasons why I hate the Kemper. Yes, this has just been a vanity session on something that I can't do myself. I couldn't build a Kemper. I can't even build an amp. I don't know what I'm doing with that stuff, and I'm okay with that. But to me, a lot of these issues should have been dealt with way before release. If this was released in the 90s, a lot of this would make sense, but it was released 10 years ago now. At that time, everything was about the user interface. Why would it take longer to name a profile than it would to capture the profile itself? How ridiculous is that? Why is it easier for two people to select sounds than one? Anyway, what do you hate most about a piece of gear you've got? Please let me know in the comments below, because it's always cathartic to hear what stupid design flaws were made for a product that is really successful. I will catch you next week. Goodbye. Why?